got into the digital space probably about 8 years ago, almost a decade. I'm one of the co-founders of Why Not You Media. We're a digital marketing agency that focuses on marketing consulting, paid advertising, content creation and strategy, and website development. So those are our 4 pillars of our company, and we work with brands and businesses and individuals who are just getting started to, have corporate structure.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to do yourself one teeny tiny little favor. Make sure to give us a follow because I don't want you to miss out on any of the amazing guests I got coming on this year. Without further ado, let's get right into this one. The guy I'm interviewing today, I had the opportunity to meet him and speak at a conference with him not too long ago. It's going to be a while back from the time this actually gets uploaded, but from the time we're recording, it's been about 2 weeks from the conference. One of the realtors that was kind of like co-hosting, collaborating, like organizing the event, I had known me personally. Shout out to April. She reached out to me, was like, hey, John, we're doing this big event. We'd love to have you speak on AI. And through her, I got to meet Francis and his team and a bunch of other amazing speakers. So Francis, for anyone that hasn't had the opportunity, the pleasure, the honor to get to know you, to get to meet you yet, man, tell us your quick elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Francis Volpe. I'm from Westchester County. Originally, grew up in Mamaroneck, New York. Got into the digital space probably about 8 years ago, almost a decade. I'm one of the co-founders of Why Not You Media. We're a digital marketing agency that focuses on marketing consulting, paid advertising, content creation and strategy, and website development. So those are our 4 pillars of our company, and we work with brands and businesses and individuals who are just getting started to, have corporate structure. So that's a little bit about what we do in a nutshell.
That's fine. For anyone that has been in the area, like you live in Connecticut or New York, like I've seen you guys long before I actually ever got to meet you guys. So it's like you guys are doing numbers. Like you guys are around. Like before we ever even shook hands, I already knew of you and Tony. So you guys are doing good work, man. So, but before we get into all the social media stuff and the business stuff, right? Yeah. I always like to start off by saying, take us back in the time machine.
Okay.
What was little Francis like growing up? Like, where does this entrepreneurial spirit come from? What were you doing when you were growing up in your childhood, man?
Yeah, so growing up, it was sports. I was an athlete. I played 4 to 5 sports a year.
Which ones were your favorite?
So my favorite sport was football.
Okay,
then it was hockey. Then it was baseball, basketball. Tried getting into lacrosse. Really wasn't my thing. Played a little bit, dabbled in soccer. But those were my 4 main sports. So growing up, I was playing sports. I was just like, okay, I love being on a team. I love being a leader. So I always thought my future would be something sport related, whether it's, playing professionally, to be quite honest. I'm very, transparent about that. Like any young kid playing sport, you have goals of being a professional. Coaching, maybe sports medicine, sports management, sports, and I always said to myself, I want to do something that I will love doing every single day, but I wasn't always fond of, working for somebody else. I kind of realized that. I'll never forget the conversation I had with my mom. I was probably like 15 years old. Okay. And I said to her, I can't see myself, working and building somebody else's company or their brand. I want to be fully invested. I want skin in the game in anything that I do. And, I tried starting little companies here and there. I had like a football glove company that I came up with because I was like,
high school?
Yeah, this was back in high school. Way. Yeah. I had a prototype made, all these things, because I was trying to figure out how do I waterproof the gloves fully, because the biggest thing with, football players is when it's raining,
oh my goodness,
your hands, not just the gloves, your hands get soaked. And if, being that you're not maybe playing college or in professional level, they don't have gloves just to give you on the sideline. Yeah. Right? So I had all these wacky ideas. I even thought about, doing things with like video game based, like a brand around video games, because I loved gaming growing up. And it was probably end of high school, going into college, where then I had this kind of mindset shift where I was like, I'd love to get into finance. I kind of sipped the Kool-Aid in a sense when it comes to like watching shows on TV about like, whether it was Wall Street, $1 million listings, all these different things. And I went to college. I was like, you know what? Finance is my route. At first I was a psychology major.
Okay.
And because something about me, I love psychology. I love how the human mind processes things, and what makes people tick. And so I was like, all right, let me take psychology because this will help me in the future. Ended up changing my major. Ended up doing business management with a minor in marketing.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, finance is still going to be the route. I'm going to get into it. I got into insurance right off the bat. And I realized very quickly this wasn't for me. And I said, okay, what's the next step? Yeah. Kept thinking about what can I do business-wise. I kept trying to figure out what's the route. And I was leaning towards going and coaching football because in a sense, it's a little bit, you're in a team atmosphere, but you almost are a solopreneur. Because you have to build relationships. You have to become very good at your craft. You are changing, in a sense, teams or businesses very frequently. Because those that don't know, coaches, you can be at Holy Cross College and all of a sudden you get a phone call, at the end of the year and you're ending up at, Florida, just because that's how it works. Now you're moving from Massachusetts to Florida. So you're really building a brand and a business within yourself as a coach. And then, from the finance route of things, I reconnected with Tony, my business partner now, Tony Peck, and I was actually trying to recruit him to insurance.
No way.
Yeah, believe it or not, I was trying to recruit him to come work at New York Life.
Yeah.
I ended up breaking my leg really bad, and I was bedridden, and for 7 months I couldn't do anything. So I had to leave the industry. And while I was hurt, Tony and I stayed in touch. And I kept coming up with ideas because I had so much time on my own. Yeah. So I was like, all right, what's the next step? I was like, let me get into mortgages, right? Okay. So I went that route, got my loan officer license. And then one day, my mom said to me, she was like, I would love for you to meet this family friend, Chaz Menendez. And I was just like, what's that about? He goes, well, he's a professional stunt performer and he works on, huge shows. He's really, truly a legend in the business. And she's like, come to a class. He has a class in their show. I was just like, I don't know.
Stunts?
Yeah. Really when you watch television movies, the fight scenes, the explosions, the gun scenes. And I was just like, I don't know, man, like stunts, what is that? And so I went, and after a few classes, I fell in love with it. And Chaz told me, he's like, you have a future in this. He's like, stick with it. And that really, to be quite honest, that moment right there, not really the loan officer side of things, but sparked this, ignited this fire in me. Yeah. And I'm like, I can do something. I can build something on my own, because I was building a name in the stunt community pretty quickly. And Tony and I and Michael now, ended up, because I would go to networking events for the loan officer side of things. We just started meeting on Wednesdays because Tony was running this networking event, and we would just try to figure out. And when I was talking to people, I was like, all right, what can I start to build on my own? I want to control my destiny. I don't want. It's not to say I didn't want a boss, but it's like, why can't I control what you can control, right? And I can control if I start my own business and the route that I take. I don't become reliant on a person, And, we came up with the whole concept of Why Not You and Why Not You Media, and I never turned back. It was, honestly, I say to this day, I've said it on other podcasts and other individuals, Why Not You Media, starting the brand, starting the business, I don't want to say saved my life, but it saved that entrepreneurial spirit, because honestly, I believe, certain things are divine intervention. Yeah. And it just happened at a moment where I was struggling to figure out, what does future Francis look like? Yeah. And then it happened. And so and we just haven't looked back. And I love every second of it. So in a sense, the entrepreneurial spirit's always been there, but I think every person goes through it where at one point it becomes suppressed, and we get discouraged. And I was feeling that, but it sparked it back up. And that goes with also, surrounding yourself with the right people that are going to ignite that fire again. No, 100%. I talk to a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, of course. And one of the things I realized is that there's no real difference between a kid and an entrepreneur, besides the fact that one has a business.
if you think about it, like how they go about their thought process, how they view the world, right? There's not too many differences besides one, as I said, has a business and one's just a little kid, right? It's a little kid. And I feel like most people fall into three buckets. It's either you're born a kid and you were brought up in a family that kind of like fostering, nurtured that entrepreneurial spirit, and you grew up and you were entrepreneurs since birth, pretty much, right? There's a few people who are like that I know, right? They had the paper route, the lemonade stand, they were selling candy in school, they were doing stuff, making money somehow. And I think majority of people fall in the second bucket, where, as you said, it's like they grow up at some point in their time, it was suppressed. And then for whatever reason, somewhere later on in life, they pick it back up. Some people usually pick it up a lot later. Some people pick it up a lot sooner, but it was suppressed and they pick it up. And then I think like the majority of the society is just like entrepreneurs who got suppressed and never, ever were able to pick it back up.
I agree.
And just stayed suppressed their whole life. And once you get to a point where you're so hard baked, well, then it's not impossible, like, because then you have like the KFC guy, right? Who started his business like 60 or something like that. So like, there's stories like that, but it's like at a certain time, it's like, it's pretty hard to try to flip the switch back on. It just gets progressively harder, because then you have more stuff you have to unpack before you can even get into that stuff.
It's making a decision, right? Like if you think about, I always felt like if you talk to every single person, someone either had an idea, a business concept, or a dream or a goal that they didn't go through, and then they end up landing that corporate job or that, union job, something that is just
has the benefits,
the security. Because as a human being, what person doesn't want a sense of security? It's important. You want to feel that, okay, I have this. And I see more and more people doing it today. Like I have, friends that are police officers, firemen, great jobs. Like we need those people in those positions, and they're starting side hustles and starting other businesses, and they're becoming very successful in both. So there's ways to do it. But like you said, I think it really is hard to get that ignited again. Because think about it. You become successful. Let's say you have a corporate structured job, and now you're moving up the ranks and you're making great money, you're supporting your family, but you're not happy. But now all of a sudden it's like, is it a selfish decision to leave that job that's supporting your family and your lifestyle to start your passion project, the thing that you always wanted to do? And I think that's a big thing people struggle with.
I think it's tough. And especially, I feel like I grew up in a very traditional household. My grandparents were born and raised in DR. So like, my grandpa is like as traditional as it gets, right? And so like I was always brought up thinking like the man, like his role is to provide and protect, right? And so like then it adds another layer of complexity, because if that's your job, then it's like, well, you have to do what you have to do for the family and stuff like that. And then it adds a whole nother layer of complexity where it's like you have this passion project, but it's like your, I guess you could say, your moral role is just like protect and provide. And in the short term, that's doing the complete opposite of what that is. So I feel like a lot of times, a lot of people just end up, like you said, going that route, and just like they have the golden handcuffs, right? I was one guy at a run club I go to here in Stanford, the Runners Collective.
I've heard of it.
I was talking to, and he started his own like marketing, like website development, stuff like that business during the pandemic, and ended up then getting a corporate job. And he's like, you see, it's kind of still there, but like he said, I gave it a shot, and then I went back to corporate, and like you could see it kind of like dying away a little bit, and it's just like, man, you just stuck with it a little bit longer. I mean, I don't know his situation, but like you see it talking to people where it's like you hear something like knocking in the back, but it's like kind of locked away, and it's like it's trapped. And a lot of times they don't want to bring it out and stuff, because as you said, it could be scary. And so let me talk to you, because you said you had that epiphany after, originally you were in school, something entirely different, right? And then one thing I wanted to touch on in there before we move on is psychology. You said you're always curious as to what makes people tick. I always had that same curiosity. And it's so funny because I also ended up in marketing, bro. It's funny how like the path is like, you're interested in people, or marketing is a good route for you to head into. But it was around, I remember my first thing like that made me really like realize that I like understanding people's, I started watching videos on YouTube on like attachment styles. And it was mainly for me to figure out like what my attachment style was and why I was the way I was. And I was always very closed off, very reserved, very like, I'm good off everyone. I could cut off the whole world. I don't need anyone. That was like my persona growing up. Right? And it wasn't until I started learning about attachment styles, I was like, I'm literally just a slave to like my upbringing. Like, and without even realizing, I'm just on autopilot, bro. Like all my decisions I'm thinking I'm making because I'm making them, and it's just like, and just me as a trauma response almost in a way. And it's like, then I ended up going to college and started learning more about psychology. And then once I realized I was a sucker for deep talks pretty early on, but like that just like solidified. And then
I love that.
Then getting into marketing, it was just like, but a lot of people talk about, and I didn't talk about it in the presentation on Brand Squared, but sometimes I usually get into like the topic of like finding your ideal target audience, right? Oh, how do I make content for them? How do I find, create videos that like my people are going to resonate with, and, convert into customers? Like, I think so many people, when it comes to like marketing, forget that like a lot of it is just psychology. It's not the caption on the screen and not the fancy words and stuff like that. It's like understanding people.
100%.
Understanding what incentives makes them take action. And it's a little bit of microeconomics too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like all that stuff. I really like microeconomics just because like it talked more about the person and the decision making on the individual level versus macro was like too broad scale. I ain't relate it as much, but that's when I started realizing like, this stuff like really, when you just pay attention to people, ends up making a lot of sense. So back to you now. So you ended up finding Tony. It's gonna be funny because I'm actually gonna interview him too on the podcast. So hearing his side of things. But
absolutely.
Once you and Tony kind of like reunited and settled on Why Not You Media, like how did your name come about? I feel like there's always usually a story behind the name.
Yeah. So ironically, Why Not You Media was not supposed to be a media company at first.
Really?
It wasn't. Yeah. So it was actually supposed to be an event company. So when we came together,
that makes sense though.
Yeah,
that makes sense, especially with like Tony's background. Like he knows a bunch of big events.
So but it's funny how everything kind of transpired. So we came together and we were like, okay, we want to start an event company because at that time, we're looking back, 5-6 years ago. The big thing was right before COVID. There was all these big entrepreneurial events, right? You go speak, like kind of like what we did with Brand Squared, but there was like so many of them at one point, like panels and speakers, and just but you were always getting sold to. There was always a selling point, and we were like, okay, we want to create something that requires the individual that shows up to learn something tangible, to take home and feel not just motivated, but given purpose and actions that they can take to help them get where they want. So we were like, okay, events, let's do it, right? But then as you discuss and you kind of go through the financials, it's like, okay, we didn't know anybody. We had no money. And we knew no one that could sponsor this to help us, land venues and other sponsors to pay for these things. Because out of pocket, an event like that, especially if you want well-known speakers, you have to pay for them, right? You have to pay for their time. So I'll never forget. I said to, and I'll get back to the name. I said to Tony, I'll never forget this. I said, why don't we start a media company? Because at the time, Tony was building all these different Instagram pages, like, Ace of Cigars, Ace of this. And I was helping him with it. I was like, we could teach people this, like how to build a presence online. And so then that's when we needed the name, right? We were starting to discuss the name. And I remember sitting there, myself, Tony, and Michael, and I said, why not you? I said, my mom always grew on when I grew up, my mom always had like these sayings. And one of the main sayings she said is, why not you? Why can't you become the next big thing? And she would always use Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, as the example. That was her example. She's like, The Rock is who he is, and somebody has to take his place when his time comes. So why can't that be you? And I was just like, this is perfect. It just falls into, and Tony and Michael were like, done. Like that was the decision. And we dropped the W and the H, and we became Y to symbolize the individual, not you. And added media at the end. And now all of a sudden we were full blown learning the media landscape. Doing our research, literally brought someone in to basically consult us, and we just figured it out, and it just grew with it. But the name came from my mom. It really, because of what she grew up saying to me, and it lives on. And now we're running these events, right? Whether it's the networking events, but really the big one is the golf outing. The golf outing is massive, and that's all to give back to Blythedale while also impacting the individuals that show up, golfer or attendee for cocktail, because it's for them to come, mingle, network, and you never know. Because of our event, you might meet somebody that changes the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
We might never be told that, but we know that can happen because of our network and the people that come. So it's all tied in together now.
Bro, that's beautiful, bro. I feel like every time like there's a name, there's usually some meaning behind it. And it's like for me, for like Walk to Wealth, it took me like 3 months to come up with that name. But then when it hit. Yeah. And then Stop and Stare Media. My company originally was supposed to be a content agency. Okay. And then it wasn't until my first client, I was editing their videos for them, sent it back. And I was just like in my bed editing videos. And it's like, I honestly hate this, right? I'm already creating all my own content and I got to do this for other people.
It's a lot of work. That some people don't realize.
Yeah. And so it's like, all right, yeah, scrap that idea. And then fast forward a little bit, ended up turning into AI. I used ChatGPT to create a class on how to use ChatGPT, like I mentioned in the presentation. And
which is brilliant.
Everything. And
it's really smart.
Why would I create a ChatGPT? It was kind of like almost
teach me about yourself. You know,
pretty much. It was like I wanted to test it out and see and then kind of show them hey, you guys thought this was like me, and the whole time it wasn't, and you weren't able to tell the difference. And so my catchphrase is AI won't replace you, someone using AI will.
I like that. Yeah, and I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, it's like that was kind of like the birth of it a little bit. It's like, look at this. Like I did this, and had I not told you I did this, you would have never known that I used AI. For all this.
If you really think about from both sides, it's like you didn't reinvent the wheel. No, you're using the resources. And that's the way we look at it, is that we're using the resources in front of us, social media. Yeah. Like it is the quickest and most efficient way to reach a massive audience and the people that you know in a click. Yeah. And we really aren't doing anything special. I think business has obviously look, there's intelligence in certain aspects of a human's qualities that play into the success of a business. Yeah. But at the same time, it's branding, right? You have to build a brand, but it's also outlasting, it's relationships, and just getting better over time. You know, it's doing more, getting better. And I think that's where people fall short, and I know we'll get into it, but from the social media aspect, you know, it's like we're in a microwavable society, and that is a big inhibitor of people's growth of their brand. I think it's probably the number one.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So you said a microwave society. Let's dive deep on that. So what do you mean by that? Because you could be referring to attention spans. You could be referring to a lot of different things. So
so I think it kind of embodies both those, right? Yeah. So I think people's attention spans are just because of the amount of choices you have as an individual now to what to watch and consume, that people's attention span, if it doesn't get them interested immediately, they can just find somebody else that's going to fill that void, right? But also, I think people fall into this whole category of, oh, look at this person. Mm-hmm. They're building a presence. They have the followers. They have the likes. They have the views. And why don't I have that? Mm-hmm. But then you can break it down. Like the one thing that you can't argue when it comes to social media is people's effort. And what I mean by that is if you look at one page, you look at one page and someone posts 1,500 times, right? And someone posts 100 times, and the person with 1,500 posts is having success, and the person that only has 100 doesn't have success, what do you think the difference is? You can't argue the amount that person has put out content, right? Like 1,500 to 100 is a significant difference. 100%. So that, I think, really discourages people, that they are like, wow, this takes a lot of work. I'm not going to post and I'm going to automatically get leads and conversations and closings and, and selling my product and my service. Psychology 101, right? It's priming people. You have to be seen so often and frequently for someone to remember who you are. Because on a daily basis, people are consuming content, talking to different people, seeing things all over the place. So to think that one post is going to do that for somebody is just, to me, it's naive, but at the same time, you don't know what you don't know. But give me one second. I'm going to just take this chain off.
No worries.
As I start moving a little too much.
I had a point on that. So once you,
Yeah. Let me just put this down. That's just when I start moving and moving my hands.
no worries. Start getting
a little passionate. But yeah, I think that is such a point of emphasis when it comes to what we both do in the world that we're in. Like, you don't become a real estate agent and get a deal like this. Like, 100%. It takes how long? It could take 6 months to get a year.
And that's one of the things like people don't understand. Like, one of the things I talk about too is like, at least when I'm teaching, I like to say that there's 2 main paths to content creation, right? There's the path of the business owner and then there's the path of the influencer. And I always say like both are great routes, but know what you're in it for, right? Because if you're in there trying to make content for vanity, for likes, engagement, and trends and stuff like that, that is great. But how you monetize that usually isn't through conversions. It's usually through something like brand sponsorships, paid deals or whatever like that, advertisements, all that kind of stuff. Whereas with a business owner, you may not have the most engagement, but it's like you get 1 or 2 leads from that video, and those leads convert. Well, now you're getting paid just as much, if not more, than the person who is creating the trendy content. And they're both routes. And if you're really good, then you can take both routes at the same time.
Absolutely.
But to the regular average business owner who has no experience with social media and is doing this all by themselves, be clear on as to what you want to do with it and then stick with it. A lot of times it gets me mad, especially like with real estate agents. It's like they expect social media to produce such a quick ROI, but will gladly waste hundreds of dollars a month sending out mailers for a year to 2 years.
Thousands of dollars a month for a mailer, man.
Without any expectation on return. And it's like, back to what you were saying about the point of like being naive. I think it's very naive, and it's great to call it what it is. Like, it's very naive to think that you can come into something where people are, who have been posting content way longer than you. I've seen this one stat, and it was like the average person gets anywhere from like somewhere between like 7,000 and 14,000 marketing messages a day, right? And so it's like, if you post once and you do the math, right, it's like by the end of the month, it's your one, let's say you post once a week.
Yeah.
It's your 4 videos versus 200,000+ pieces of content.
Yeah.
That they've seen. So it's like, back to what you were saying, like about the attention thing. I agree with you 100%. I think attention span is like, not that they got them shorter, just the bar is so high now to hold someone's attention. Because they have so many alternatives, they have so many options.
Yeah.
And so it's like, when it comes to being a business owner, there's also all the other people know this, which gets them scared. So it's like, if you decide to commit to this, well, just know that in the long run, most of the people that are also going to start using social media probably aren't going to be able to stick with it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, knowing that it shouldn't scare you away from creating content. It should kind of like bring you into content, because if it's tough for you, it's damn near going to be tough for everyone else. And it's like, if you just, a lot of times it becomes a battle of attrition almost. So who can stick the longest?
It's outlasting.
Yeah.
It's
not even winning. That's the hard part. No. It's not even winning. It's just who can outlast sometimes.
Yeah. And I think but that's where a lot of people fail to understand. It's that, like, you brought up like the influencer business side of things, right? And then to kind of add to that, there's then influencers that use the influence to build a business backing the attention they have. And then you have business owners that become so successful and they become an influencer and now they're playing both routes, right? So when at the end of the day, I think that, like you said, it's making a choice. Like, what route do you want to go? Both require the same amount of work in regards to output, time, focus, effort, planning. Like, some of these influencers, when they first start out, if you watch any influencer, they are like testing, but it's strategic. Yeah. I've had the chance, because of Snack Time, to meet some like really large people, like large presences online. Every single one of them has a sauce that they use. Like, they have not a secret sauce, but like a formula,
strategy, system, framework.
Yes, there's every single one of them. Like, and if they tell you they don't, I don't believe it. They just don't want to tell you it. They all have a formula. They all have a way of doing things, how they set their videos up, what they say in the beginning, what they say in the middle, what they show, camera movement, all this stuff. Like, how they even tell a story. Like, they start to create this strategy sometimes. And the beautiful part about it is that individual can take what they learn and incorporate that into something else. And a business owner, right, if you understand and learn how to grow a business, all that time and effort, everything you learned in business, you can applies. So that's why I think where people need to begin to understand is that whatever route you want to take, understand is that you have to do more, get better, and outlast.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the formula, right? That's the formula. And I just don't think people want to do it.
I agree with you 100% because it's a lot easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you hear a lot of people, it's like, oh, you just got to do X, Y, Z, and they make it sound so simple. And it's because like a lot of it is, but it's like simple doesn't mean easy, right? Like trying to outlast when money's tight, when you're just getting the business off the ground, when you have a bad month or a bad stretch or dry spout, and it's like, man, it's been tough. And I've been sharing on my podcast, it's been tough this year. A lot of times, it's like, I feel like Paul Revere at times. I say, it's like, I'm crying out AI. And it's like, people hear it, but it's like, they're not really like internalizing it yet. It's like, because it's not really a need. Like, if you have cancer, like, you got to go get that checked out. Yeah. There's no like real negotiating.
No.
Like, you got to go get it removed, your tumor removed, or else you're screwed.
Yeah.
But it's like, for something like this, where it's like AI, it's like, it can help you so much, but if you don't use it, it's not like you're going to die.
No.
It's not. So it's like, it's more of a want than a need, but it's like trying to tell people, it's like, it's not for now, it's just future proofing, right?
Exactly. And I
social
love
media is like your future proofing. How can you make sure that you don't get replaced? Like so I was preparing for a presentation last year, and I was like just looking up quotes on AI because one of the one of the parts I mentioned, I think in the presentation was like about like negative AI headlines. And one of the speeches I came across was the founder of Nokia. In his final speech, he mentioned before he got bought out by Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken, he mentioned something along the lines of like, we didn't do anything wrong, and yet somehow we still lost, or something along the line. I might be misquoting, but pretty much, he's right. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't mess up. They didn't fail or anything. Just like they weren't quick enough. They couldn't keep up.
Yep.
And even though they didn't mess up, they couldn't keep up. And because they didn't keep up, ended up getting bought out, and there's not much you can do, right? So it's like, now to scale that down to the average everyday business owner, it's like, well, if all your other business owner friends that are competing with you for the same target audience, they're all using AI, they're all using social media, not only going to get more done, but they're going to be more productive, more efficient, more effective, less stressed, right? And then let's say everyone on their team starts using it, and then it's like, that just then multiplies.
I feel like ChatGPT or AI in general, is at the same stage as what social media was.
A few years ago, like when it first came out, 100%.
Like, speaking on like what you do, you're so ahead of the game. And being that you're young as well, think about it where 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you have incorporated AI in everything that you do, one, you get back your time. You can do more meetings. You can do more calls, like, because you automate them, and then people are going to want to learn how to do it, and then they're going to have to pay to learn how to do it, right? Because there's levels to this stuff, and it's so hard for people to grasp. And it goes back to what I said. It's the microwavable society. Like, people, like, there's got to be people, for example, right? We did the Brand Squared event. You spoke about AI. You gave the prompt. You gave tangible action. You know how many people probably used the prompt and then said, well, wait, now I got to shoot the content. But like, do you understand how much time this saved you? That now you don't have to develop all these ideas, which could take days, weeks, months, for years. And now all of a sudden you have it right in front of you. But then the people and the businesses that incorporate AI and adapt to society, right? Because time is your most valuable currency. AI gets your time back. Like, we use it for Why Not You Media all the time because it streamlines processes where now instead of having to like sit there and do something, AI takes care of it. And that 3 hour, 4 hour time block you needed can be moved and used for other things that are going to move the needle forward.
Or even sometimes just used to chill out a little bit. Sometimes we need to decompress. And like, that's the thing. Like, time gives us flexibility. Time gives us options. And so we talked a lot about future proofing. Like, I'm curious as to like, Why Not You Media, right? Where like are you guys planning on taking this? Because as I said, you guys are working with a lot of people. I said I've known of you guys long before I actually had the opportunity to get to meet you guys, because like there's a mutual somewhere. Someone that I know was working with you. I'd seen someone that was, I met at some conference way back when at a meeting with you or Tony or something like that on their Instagram story. And so it's like, where's the vision with that you guys plan on taking Why Not You Media?
So Why Not You Media, like I mentioned, we have the 4 pillars that we focus on: the content creation, the strategy, the marketing consulting, the paid advertisement, website development. Those are the 4 things we focus on. But for us, like, we are a new school business with an old school mentality, and that will fall into what our future holds, is that we're so relationship driven. We are a very different agency where, like, we'll do the cigar, we'll do the dinner, we'll do the golf. Like, we treat it like a corporate business, like a financial institution, because most agencies, it's like you're talking to someone through a computer, right? You might not have that meeting, right? You might not get that one-on-one relationship. But our goal, and like how we see, and it's funny, ironically, I just had this conversation with Tony over the weekend, is that we see ourselves like not ever getting away from those pillars, but really growing into that consulting firm, that media consulting firm, that we can get brought in to, a financial institution, an insurance institution, a real estate institution, whatever it may be, and help that marketing team navigate the world of digital and strategy. Because when you're not in this, and a lot of these companies have marketing teams, like if you look at some of the biggest, like, Procter & Gamble, they own tons of businesses, right? They're massive. They have so many assets, but like you watch and you look up like a Febreze and you look at what they're doing on social media. They're not doing what is right or required for today's audience. They're still stuck in the TV-centric style of content and strategy because that's all they've ever known. So as we grow, I'm just using that as an example, it's working with businesses, and we can work with all levels, which we do now, but working with those companies that have structure and helping them take their marketing from here to here to move the needle. So we also love what we do. And so we're always learning. So it's really just continuously defining ourselves as the professionals in the industry that are going to help a company or individual take it to the next level. And we found ourselves kind of really diving into that professional world, like working with financial institutions, working with, just larger blue collar companies, right? Both white and blue collar. But that's where we see the world is moving towards the consulting, because there's so much value in that for these companies. Like, they'll spend the money to learn something over, just call it like an 8-hour period. Let's say you charge $100,000, whatever. And for 8 hours, they spend $100,000, but on the back end, when they incorporate what they learn in the 8 hours, they're making millions. 100%. So that is where we see the future.
That's dope. I think that's like an amazing idea, because those teams also have like the money to like implement that stuff. So and the time, because like they'll hire people for marketing specifically. It's not like someone that still has to manage their payroll, still has to manage their accounting, still have to manage their actual clients and their, that whole stuff. Like, they'll hire people dedicated for marketing to do everything that you're telling them to do. That's dope, and it's something that it's a business model. It's like, I love it because it's like I feel like this is where one thing I resonate with you and Tony a lot, and like I feel like we all seem to love teaching people how to fish. Versus giving them fish. It's like as soon as you mentioned like throwing events that have tactical, tangible benefits and takeaways, there's a lot of fluff out there. There's a lot of motivation and inspiration. And it's like, go do some work. That's the bottom line. That's it. Go do what you got to do. Right. Yes, the inspiration is great, but it's like, also it's like, all right, what can I implement? I think it's like the way I see public speaking, it's like it's your moral obligation when you're on that stage, your duty, I feel, right, to make it as easy for someone, as simple for someone to understand and as easy for them to implement.
100%.
Right? It's just like they have to be able to understand it, because if they don't, they won't implement it. And if they understand it but then don't implement it, it's like, well, then, it is on them. I feel like it's your job to make it as easy as possible, right? And so it's like, when I go up there, that's why I have the acronyms, that's why I have the 3 secrets, that's why I have, like, all that stuff I learned. And you also, another thing you mentioned too, you said new school of business with the old school mentality. When it comes to marketing, old school marketing has so much value, like direct response marketing. And it's just like, when I was learning about marketing, I was learning a lot of that stuff. But then, like, I'm growing up at my age, already known social media a little bit. And then once I started actually getting into content creation, podcasts, recording my own videos, all this stuff. But like, I was looking at all these people from old school, just like taking those principles that work and then applying it to like what is going on nowadays. A lot of people are trying to take those principles that used to work and still apply those same principles in the way they were applied way back then. Like, we're not doing print advertising anymore.
No.
Like, the psychology behind what they did still works, but like, they're still trying to use those old vehicles. It's like, no, take the principles and then apply it to the new vehicles that we have for this day and age, which is the social media, that is the content creation. It's like, and that's where you get the best of both worlds, because it's tried and true. It's like, it's worked for a reason. And then like, but then that vehicle is outdated. So like, for example, the Febreze is like, how do you take the stuff that worked for TV, but then apply that through what's working now, which is the social media, which is the content. And it's like, find the best of both worlds. I feel like it's such a game changer for everything.
And if you have the money to be omnipresent, absolutely do it all, right? Do the billboards, do the print, do the TV, do the social media. And there are companies that have the ability to do that. But like you said, it's taking principles that worked with the old, incorporating them in the new, but also understanding that this landscape is changing so much. Like what people watch from older to younger, these new generations, like they want it. They want something new always. So it's always changing. And if you're not on top of it, it's on you. It really is. You have to take accountability. And I don't remember exactly if I said this on the during my talk, is that where a lot of people often get stuck is that they find a piece of content that works, that's converting, right? It's getting the attention that they want. It's creating conversations, right? And or generating leads. And then what they do is they start making only that type of content while not adapted, not being dynamic. I like to use the word dynamic. They don't start trying other things, just because when you've pushed that piece of content to the limit and there's a change and people change, right? Because people change every year, and then you're all of a sudden back to the drawing board. So I believe that every business, every company, like I think a great example of it is you watch Old Spice. Like Old Spice has that version of their advertising that they've known has worked throughout the years. That guy on the horse, their
commercials are pretty funny.
They're hilarious, and you always remember them. But then if you look at their social media strategy and you look at other types of content that they've created within the Old Spice universe, they're dynamic. They're always changing it up, because the younger audience that's their next buyers might not like that style. So, but it might attract the older audience. They're like us as we get older, but like our kids are going to be like, yo, that's dumb. But now, because they've been so dynamic, they're figuring out what that next generation likes, and they're never missing a beat.
It's like you're playing for today, right? Because you need to eat today, but prepping for the future as well. Like, how can you just be in the present, right? But take what's worked from the past and play in the present, because you need to eat today. But then still have your mind facing towards the future a little bit. And it's like, that's a great example of doing that. And so, man, we probably keep on talking just on this alone for quite a while now. 100%. I want to make sure we get people to know where we can find you at. I know I said you guys are big here locally, but for the listeners that may be tuning in from God knows where, where can we find you guys at? Where can we tap in with you guys at? And what do you guys have coming up? Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on all platforms at Francis Volpe. I'll spell it FRANCIS VOLPE. If you're from New York or a Yankee fan, same last name as Anthony Volpe, not related. Why Not You Media on all platforms, letter Y, NOTYOU Media. We have a website, just add .com at the end of it, but that's where you can find us on all platforms. But right now, what we're working on is, very soon, we're in October, we're going to be talking about the next golf outing already, right? So that's going to be the next conversation. I'm definitely going to be there too. Last year I was going to go, and so I had my event the day before. That morning after was your event. Had to fly out to Austin. Oh yeah, you were telling us at the event. I wanted to be there because, as I said, I've seen your guys' event, and then on top of that, we have so many mutual connections. I'm surprised we hadn't met sooner. I know Austin. Tony was at a couple events with Austin, Brandon, Doris, and all of them. So it's like, I'm surprised we haven't connected in person sooner. But everything happens for a reason. Absolutely, right? Met when we were supposed to meet. Absolutely. So that would be, the next thing for us is getting and prepping for the next golf outing. How to make it bigger, better, more efficient, effective.
Like we do walkthroughs of the location. You know, they have an amazing management staff over there at Pelham Split Rock. Shout out Rocco. You know, they really allow us to do what we do at that grand scale. I don't think there's another outing that they really let do what we do with the food trucks and just the way that we put things together. But that is the next big project for Why Not You Media. And then for clients, it's just, you know, every client's at a different level. You know, some clients are just, you know, they're still learning to crawl and some are ready to run. So that's really what we have going on. And we're looking forward to seeing, you know, just what transpires. You know, I get excited for what's the next relationship or what relationship do we have that is going to mature and elevate both parties to that next level, right? Because that's what it's about. I think, you said the podcast is, what Walk the Wealth, and it's a huge part of it is just who you surround yourself with.
100%.
Get in the room with people that are trying to change their lives in a positive way. And there's ways to do it. And I'll tell a quick story.
No worries, we got time.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story just because around that concept. My mom had a friend who, this is years ago, made a decision to move to an area that they could just afford, like a little bit more of a higher end area. They were just squeezing by.
Yeah.
And this is a true story. I don't remember the individual's name, but this story, like my mom.
Stuck with you.
Yeah. And she said that the husband decided to join the local country club. And when I say they were just able to afford things, they were making it work, right? They were calculating the budget every month to make it happen. But he joined the country club, and within a short period of time, a year or two, a few years of being there, he built relationships with individuals, with other members that have built successful businesses. And he learned so much. He actually ended up landing a position within one of the companies of the members that he became close with and surrounded himself with, and became a multimillionaire.
Oh, wow.
And stories like that, people hear them and they think, well, that'll never happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need to take a look in the mirror and and actually really audit yourself.
Yeah.
Where do you spend most of your time? Where do you go on weekends? What conversations are you having? I think that if people aren't talking about health, wealth, and God, you need to find another group of people, because those are the conversations you should want to be having. And if you don't, that's on you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But those are the individuals that are trying to level up. They're going to be the ones that are going to keep you accountable. They're going to want you growing. So if you do want to change your life, going out on a Friday or Saturday night to the local bar, the dive bar, and having beers and just drinking, you're probably not going to find those individuals there. But you make the decision to go to the cigar lounge, go to, different business events, different, just events in general that require networking. You're going to meet those individuals. So there's never an excuse that you're not around those people.
Yeah.
You have to start going to where they go.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like, you want to go talk to a bunch of Christians, where they at on Sunday? The church. You want to go talk to a bunch of muscleheads, where they at? In the gym. Right? People all gather in certain places. It's like, it's so much easier to just go to where they're at than trying to have to search. And mention a couple points I want to hit really quickly, right? In terms of opportunity, opportunities are everywhere. We just can't see them because we're not smart enough yet. We don't know enough yet to understand it. For example, if we took a billionaire right now, they could take both of our business and within a couple, months, have us on track to doing 8-9 figures, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like, why? Because they've been there, they know more. And so it's like they can come into our shoes with where we're at, with the research we at.
Yep.
And things that we didn't know were possible, well, they already have done.
Yeah.
It's like, opportunities are everywhere. A lot of people are ignorant to them just because they don't know enough yet. They're not aware enough yet. So a lot of times you have to read these books, listen to these podcasts, do so much to just learn. And it won't immediately help you out, but it just make you more aware. And then you should be able to start recognizing opportunities that were there all along.
You're wiring your brain. I truly believe that what you put into it, and this goes to the psychology stuff. It's like what you put into is what you're going to get out of your brain and out of your mind. Like if you tell yourself every single day that you're stupid, you're going to start to believe it. Mm-hmm. But if you start to tell yourself, and that's why they say positive affirmations are important, especially to give to your children, because you tell them, hey, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you're strong, all these things. But saying that even as an adult is extremely important, because if you're just putting negativity and toxic, content into your mind, what do you think is going to occur? If you ask somebody for their social media account, you go on their Instagram and you go through their explore page, what they follow, it will tell you a lot about an individual, because those who are looking to excel, like, you're going to listen to people that are where you want to be. Right. And I think that is just an important part of it, is that start with reading personal development books, podcasts. Like, we have access to all of this.
100%.
But I think it just goes back to what we said in the beginning. Yeah. It's understanding that it's going to take time to rewire the brain. But if you have people around you that can help expedite that, like you brought up the billionaire example, get around people that can expedite the process.
100%.
I've had the liberty of having a little cousin. He's 19 years old. He's my little brother. But watching him from 5 to 10 to 15 to now going to be turning 20 in November, like, just how his mind has shifted. Like, he's 19 years old, and when I talk to him, because I used to feed him Gary Vee and Ed Milet, and I used to just feed this stuff to him. And I was just like, let's see if this works on him, because he's impressionable. And it did. Yeah. And now sitting with him at 19 years old, he tells me straight up, if the conversation is not going to move in a positive direction in regards to, like, not that it's the beneficial, but it's like, I want to talk about growth. I want to talk about how to make more money. I want to talk about how to get stronger and healthier. He goes, I will talk about the sports stuff, but, like, I can only have that convo for so long. Yeah. You brought up deep convo, 19 years old, and that's what he looks for. Do you understand where, if that continues to develop, where he's going to be at 30?
100%.
So that is an important concept for people to understand, is that there are people out there that want to help you. And if you say, well, what value can I give to them? And I actually thought about this driving over here. I said, the value that you can give to somebody, if you think you have no value to give, is the ability to listen. Because people that are successful will always pull you up. People below you will pull you down. But those above you, you sit with them and you ask questions, they are going to love that about you. Because they're like, this individual is young, they are hungry, they are ambitious, and they want to listen. I want to help them.
100%.
So that's your value.
And, like, I can attest to that, because I started my podcast a couple months after I turned 20.
That's incredible.
Like, and that has 100% always been the case. When you get to a certain point of success, the only thing that really pours back into you is helping other people. Because once you already have all the money you need, all the wealth you need, all the tangible objects, materialistic stuff, it's like, there's not much that can fill an empty heart besides like helping other people.
Pay it forward.
Exactly. Right? And just like those people that you mentioned, like when I was 20 and I was reaching out to have people on my podcast, I gladly hopped on. It was like, what, John, you want to talk to me? You want to interview me and have me talk about my business? Gladly. And you're going to post it and get it out to more people. That's your value. Start a podcast, right? If I was talking to your cousin, I'd like, yo, bro, even if you don't want to be a podcaster per se, just record it, upload it to YouTube, and just say you're starting a podcast, interviewing the top entrepreneurs in the area. And I came across you. I love what you have going on. I promise you that has like almost a 95% success rate of getting people on. Like, I have been wanting to talk to the top entrepreneurs and you popped up. Would you be down to hop on the podcast? And don't ask them to pick their brain. Don't ask them I can have 15 minutes of your time. I would love to feature you on my podcast. And then people will gladly hop on and sometimes even hang out with you even longer. So I give you more gems, more. And it's like, especially if the conversation then goes well, and it's like a lot of people don't understand. It's not the podcast that's like makes the connection. It's like that 10 sometimes minutes before, 10 minutes after when the camera stops recording, but you keep the conversation going. That the amount of connections I made there, man, have been amazing. So like I said, we could probably keep on going forever, bro. Now it's time for my lightning round, the famous 5 questions, same 5 questions I ask every single guest that hops on. Question number 1 is, what is the most impactful lesson you've learned in life?
Wow, that's a good one. The most impactful lesson that I've learned in life is that there's a few, but I think I'm going to give you like a main one. Relationships are going to take you where you want to go. 100%. Building true, genuine relationships with people. People are the door to opportunity. Absolutely.
What is the most admirable trait a person can have?
Admirable trait. Man, I think it goes to what I just said before, the ability to listen. but like actively listen, retain what it is that you're saying, and then able to regurgitate, what it is that you said to them, showing that you actually that they understood you. I think as any person getting into business or is in business, I think some of the most successful people I know, but I'm talking like uber successful.
Yeah.
One thing that they do really well is they listen.
If you had to change someone's life but only had one book to recommend, which would it be?
The Slight Edge. The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. I read that book. I was given to that book by a friend, and it completely changed my life. It is a huge reason why I'm sitting here, because it broke down the small things in life to the level of understanding that every little thing that you do will impact and compound over time, but giving you real life scenarios, giving you real testimonials of that working. So that would be the book, The Slight Edge.
What is the legacy that you're working on leaving behind?
When my time comes, that's what I like to call it. Yeah. When my time comes,
you get called back home.
Yeah. I want to be remembered as somebody that was caring, supportive, and gave back. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be like, I remember seeing this quote, no one's going to remember how many likes you got, how many views you got, how many comments you got on social media. They're going to remember how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure when that time comes and there's people at my funeral, they can all remember a moment that I made them feel on top of the world.
And for anyone that wants to embark on their walk to wealth today, what is the first step you recommend they take?
First step they take is they have to audit the people that are around them. They have to take a deep look into their friends, their family, their colleagues. Who are you around? What do they talk about? And if it doesn't align with the person that you want to become, find where those people are. And you brought it up before, a perfect place to start is something like a runner's club. Yeah. Why? Because those people are out there looking to better themselves. They're running to stay in shape. Usually those who want to stay in shape and stay healthy are people that are trying to excel in other parts of their lives. There is a correlation. I truly believe that. But that is what I would say to somebody is you need to audit those people. And unfortunately, it does potentially lead to ending friendships, not sitting here and saying, hey, we're no longer friends, but it's going to fizzle out because your interests change. And that to me, if you watch any movie, read any book, or hear anyone's story, those who decide to make a change and leave where they're from to excel in life, they end up getting where they want. But the hardest part is making sure that when you do make it, you don't get sucked back in. Yeah. Because now you're like, oh, let me go back to go around those people. There's a reason why those people are there, and there's nothing against them. But I feel as individuals, we all want more out of life. I don't think there's a person on this planet that doesn't. So audit those, make a decision, and get around people that are going to level you up.